Hey everyone. So today we get the privilege of hearing from Katie, who's gone through the BEC program, and to hear where she was before, where she, what the process was like, and then where she is today. So, Katie, hey, how are you?
Hey, hi Beth. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we're so excited to just kind of hear from coaches and what the process was like in going through BEC. So, tell us a little bit of where you were before you went through BEC, and then what was the process like going through the course for you becoming a coach?
I had studied the Enneagram for 15 years. After I had my second child, I had some
Yeah.
postpartum, and a counselor was like, "Oh, must be so hard to be a one in doing this." And I had no idea what she was talking about. And so for
Mhm.
15 years, I've read everything. I've gone to workshops. I've done all these things. And I had become a spiritual director about 7 years ago. I'd gone through my training for that, and I used it in my training with
Yeah,
people if they were familiar with it. But I
sure.
didn't have a lot of confidence in really imparting a system to people. I could talk
Mhm.
about it and I could talk about myself and my
Mm.
type, but I had a hard time explaining to somebody else how to know what they were or what
Mhm.
that might look like for them. And so I hit this point where in my practice it was coming up more as a spiritual director. In my life it was coming up more. And I think that for me, the reason I chose to do it was really to give myself some confidence.
Mhm.
And going through the course, I was surprised. I knew that I knew a lot about it, but didn't know how to talk about it, but
Yeah.
was surprised that I could be taught
Mm.
how to talk about it. And so, what was so helpful was to go through the training and just to hear you over and over again say certain things. And I
Mhm.
started picking up through the course itself, but also just through listening, how I was going to be able to express what the system of the Enneagram was to people,
Yeah.
and then how to potentially help people type and
Mhm.
grow in their number. And I knew that the Enneagram was used for growth in me, but it never occurred to me to teach it as a growth tool, which
Yeah.
sounds so silly, but I didn't. And so going through the program, I all of a sudden felt like, oh, I know how to talk about this now.
Mm.
All that information that I'd spent 15 years accumulating was now coming out, but it made
Mhm.
sense. And of course, I've only had my certification for half a year now,
Yeah.
but I've given a bunch of different presentations and I'm
Mm.
still working on my own presentation. I'm still
Right.
thinking, oh, I think I would like to say this. I don't think that's really me. I think I'm better
And
off.
I do it all the time too. And
Right.
that's but I think that's
Yeah.
beautiful because
Uh-huh.
it's always a process. We're always
Yes.
learning, we're always growing. And each group we're with, we have to think, okay, well, who are they? What do they need to hear?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, even though there's this basic understanding of the Enneagram we want to impart, we also want to make sure it's customized to them. And so, I love that you're continually
Yeah.
learning and growing and perfecting. Of course, there'll never be a perfect way of doing it, but you're perfecting what what you could say or what you could do with each of
Yes.
your clients or audiences that you're with.
Yeah.
That's so great.
Yes. And so I think that even the part of the program, which I didn't expect, but was
Mhm.
really pleased with, was how to set up a website, how to do, all of that stuff. And even just getting an example of your presentation was
Yeah.
helpful to me to just say, okay, here's a framework. Let me
Mm.
start with that. And then let me tweak it based on who I'm with, who I am,
Yeah.
how I think, what makes sense to me. And just even some of that business perspective was really helpful to me. And
Yeah.
so I think even in spiritual direction, which again, I've always done it in that, but now I just have more tools. The
Mhm.
guide sheets are really helpful.
Mhm.
Even when I just glance at something before someone comes,
Yes.
and I can remember, oh, here's a few key things about an eight that I don't want to forget when I'm meeting with this person. And
Right.
then I just have so much more material. I guess
Yeah.
I have more material, I have more confidence, and I have a better understanding in my own brain of the
Mhm.
system of it that I can impart to people.
That's so great. And then with the guide sheets, at least what I love, and of course I'm a little biased because I developed them. but they really guide me in guiding my clients. Like, I don't have to like come up with this huge plan and think through all the things that I should say
Mhm.
or maybe should say, or, because in a sense, each client's different.
Yeah.
But to start with 5 sessions, kind of laying this framework, it's so nice to then get to know them through that framework. And
Mhm.
then the rest of the coaching courses will come much more naturally and easily because it's like, oh, now I know you. I know your story. We've really worked together and we have this kind of, bond together to
Mhm.
then make it even more real and special for them moving forward. Have you found that that was true for you as well?
Mhm. I have, and I think that the reflection questions, I am a bit of a talker, which is
Yeah.
funny for a spiritual director. So I've really loved even my Enneagram coaching sessions because I get to talk more and I like
Yeah.
talking.
Yes.
Um, and so they talk and I talk, and we have so much talking that we barely ever get to the reflection question.
Yes.
But
Same.
I took that I took your advice to have them type it out for their sake and let me read it. And then we don't go over it together, but I do continue to get more and more information every time they do it. And it makes them kind of invested in the process because they're not just investing that hour with me. They're investing in, I really want you to think through where you saw yourself going to your arrows. And
Yeah.
they can't do that spur of the moment. I couldn't do it spur of the moment. And
Right.
so it's
Right.
important to go back and do it, and then for them to email it to me and for me to
Mhm.
just know. And then I'll notice as I'm doing another coaching session, I'll refer to a story and I'll say, well, I think it's not unlike what you said when you were remarking about this. And
Mhm.
I think that just creates a better bond because they know I've read it, I'm thinking about
Yes.
them. And so yeah, it's been really helpful. And there
Yeah.
have been portions I've skipped based on who they were, and
Right.
that was okay. But it's like,
Yes.
if I didn't have the framework, I wouldn't
Mhm.
know I might not have had the confidence to jump in.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that's so beautiful, like you said, is they really want to know that we're invested in them. And even if you don't spend either a little bit or no time at all on the actual reflection questions and what they wrote, just letting them know, like, hey, I saw that you wrote this, or
mhm,
I remember you had discussed this in your email, and
yeah.
kind of bringing those insights back up. It shows them, oh, you're paying attention, you're
Mhm,
really invested in me, and so it will help them to even go further with the process because they know they're not just typing it for themselves. Like someone else is really there for them. And I think that that just helps them to go deeper and
yeah.
feel like, oh, like if you notice something, they're going to be
Mhm,
like, oh, she's going to bring it up. If there's something that needs to be highlighted or if I'm off on something.
mhm,
And so I love that because I'm the same way. We have such a great time talking. I want them to share as much as they can,
mhm,
aha moments, creating new neural pathways in their mind. And so
mhm.
those reflection questions are really, I mean, if we have to fill time, if I've got someone who's super
Yeah,
quiet, they're
yeah.
great. It's there, but I
Mhm,
really like to have them utilize that later and talk
yeah,
as much with me as possible. So I love that. It sounds like we're kind of on that same
yeah,
wavelength together. So it makes it really fun.
yeah. I love that.
Well, good. So what's been some of your favorite things about BEC, whether during the course or after the course, that you would love other potential coaches to know about, and what would you say to them as they're kind of
Mhm.
thinking through, is this the investment that I want to make, and where is it taking you?
When I was deciding on whether I could do it, I could not afford the highest level.
Yeah.
I knew that came with the guide sheets and all this material,
Mhm.
and I wanted that so badly. And I thought, I can't do it if I have to do it at that level. So I
Right.
did intro level. And
Yeah.
then as I got clients and then
Hmm.
I bought guide sheets for the
Yeah.
types that I coached. And
Exactly.
so I would say just start. Don't
Yes.
panic about the levels, just start. You can fill in your materials as you go, as you're being
Hmm.
paid by people
Yep.
for your coaching. And I also think I've been surprised. I don't do much with social media, period.
Hmm.
Not a big social media girl, but I have really, there's been a few key moments when someone asked a question on the coach's page
Yeah.
that I had, that their answers really filled in something for me. And then I took a workshop on the stances, and
Hmm.
somebody else took a workshop on the stances. And I asked her if she would share her notes with me, and I would share mine with
Yeah.
her. And then by combining them, we got a much better picture, and we could see where we got things wrong. It was really
Mhm.
interesting. And so now, so my resources have increased. And
Yes.
somebody said something like, oh yeah, I did this thing on grief. And I had just had a client who was grieving. And I thought, gosh, I've never thought about grief and Enneagram type. And
Right.
asked them to send me their notes. And they sent me all their notes. And I was able to
Mhm.
say, this is really normal for you. And,
Mhm.
what in general, what I notice with clients is when you just normalize their
Yes.
behavior and say, this is really common in a 3. This is
Yeah.
typical for a 4. They don't feel so weird or different or strange. And so
Right.
what I found is, even in that Facebook page, all the people talking about all the things I pulled, when I'm
Mhm.
talking to someone else. Oh yeah, there was
Yeah.
I've heard about a situation, this and that. So I've been surprised by that. Um, and then I've just been really happy to have my notebook and all my information and
Mhm.
all my things, like I said, to go back to
Yeah.
and run through and remind myself of, and just have.
Yeah.
And it's just like my arsenal. I just
Yeah.
feel happy to have it. Like, here it is.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
always tell people, I go, I know I over deliver on content, but it's not that you have to memorize it all like right when
Mm,
you're going
no.
through the course, but man, you're going to want it
Yeah.
when you're meeting with clients and something comes up. You can flip right to it and go, oh, I've got the answer. And of course, it's not all encompassing. There's so much about the Enneagram, like you said, like grief
Yeah.
and other things that
Yeah.
we're going to have to continue to learn. But to have that really solid basis foundation is going to
Yeah.
be so incredible. And our new and improved resource, or we call textbook, is like 300 plus pages. So it's even fuller.
Wow.
It's the design is even, I mean, you're going to be blown away by the
I have
increase.
I have thought about that because I know I did it a while ago, and I keep seeing all this new content come out, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I
Yeah.
want that stuff
I know.
too.
It's like, I want
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the new students, they are just going to get so much great content and
Yeah.
in a way that's even more easily accessible than what we even had when you took the
Mhm.
course. So I'm just
Mhm.
really excited for people to have that, like you said,
Mhm.
arsenal at their
Yes.
disposal so that they can work with any
Yeah.
client at hand. So
Yeah.
yeah. So where are you today with it and how are you, how's it been coaching with it and where is it
Yeah.
taking you?
Well, what's crazy is I'm doing a ton of different stuff with it. I'm doing a small group, or a monthly group that we're meeting and talking about the Enneagram. I do spiritual direction and talk about it with people. I've done presentations at churches
Mhm.
and um, businesses. I've done a workshop about Enneagram and spiritual practice because I'm a spiritual director. That's my like heartbeat. And so
Yeah.
um, did a workshop about that, planning another one. I'm doing so much with it. And I will say that I have been a spiritual director for 7 years and
Mhm.
was doing it on the side. But there was something about getting this certification that just forced me to say, am I going to do this as a career? Do I
Right.
believe I have what it takes to really invest in myself and in a company I create? That's just me, and get
Mhm.
out there in the world and do it. And I did not do that before I did this course. And something
Mhm.
about taking the course and recommitting to myself um, gave me the energy and motivation to kind of build a business. And
Yeah.
so I got new business cards and I have a brochure that I made and I did all of that and all of those things, and doors keep opening. I led a retreat
Mhm.
where I led it as a spiritual director, but as a portion of it, they wanted me to do an Enneagram presentation of it
Mhm.
as well. And so I just think it's given me versatility. I think it's given me um, how do I want to say it? It's legitimized to myself that
Yeah.
I have a job to do, and I'm making
Yes.
time for it. I'm making space for it. I'm putting
Mhm.
energy towards it. And I think there was something about being certified and getting
Mhm. Yeah.
going through a program and being taught
Yes.
the tools of how to make a business that really gave me that push. So I'm kind of using it in 10 different ways. I'm even using what I learned in my spiritual direction practice,
Mhm.
but the point is I invested in myself um,
Yes.
in a way that I hadn't in a long time. I've mostly been at home raising kids, which I've loved,
Right?
and I've known it was time, known
Yes.
it was time to move. So
Well,
it was
and that's
exciting.
the exact kind of same story as me. I raised my
Mhm.
kids, and I think when they were both like, let's see, Nate was probably 17, Libby was 15. I
Mhm.
knew, okay, in a couple years they're going to be out of the house. So what do I want to be when I grow up? And as a 9, I knew I needed a little bit extra time to figure it out. Um, but that's when God just made it clear, like you said, we have work to do, and we're a part of an army of people that are spreading the gospel,
Mhm.
and we're basically using the Enneagram from a gospel centered perspective to disciple, really. I mean, we call it coaching, but it's really discipleship, and it's helping them growing closer to Christ. But
Mhm.
what I love is that the Enneagram is like this foundational piece, but
Mhm.
each of us have our own calling and our own way of doing it. So for you, it's spiritual direction. I just talked with
Yeah.
Christy Rolls, who is a counselor who's using it
Mhm.
in that kind of a coaching therapeutic lens.
Yeah.
And other people do it with different, like it could be self-care, it could be all the different things. So whatever God has designed us uniquely, we can
Yes.
bring this training in and
Yes.
to flourish. And like how has God made us? How do we thrive? What is excites us? And to
Yeah.
stay there, because that's when real transformation in others is going to happen. So I love hearing from
Mhm.
you that, like, yeah, this is how God has made me. This is how I impart the Enneagram
Yeah.
to others, is through spiritual direction. And people are being blessed by it, by you
Yeah.
being faithful to the calling that God has given you.
Yeah. It's exciting.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that you have, where you've been, going through the process, and where you are now. It's so exciting. I can't wait to just hear more of what God is going to do in and through you as you continue to use it to bless others.
Yes. Can I say one more thing?
Absolutely. Go for it.
Well, what I would say is one of my things that was in my con of not doing it was
Yeah.
how can Nashville in particular need
Mm,
another Enneagram coach? How,
yeah.
do we need one more? It's so saturated. But what you just said reminded me, and it was why I chose in the end to do it, was that there's only one me. I only have one perspective on it, but no matter who you are, you actually do have a unique and different way of presenting it. And there are people that will need you, who come to you. And I fully believe that people who come to me were sent to me, and that I have something they need. And it's not that I'm the only one, it's
Yeah.
just that it's, I do have, but I have something unique to offer. So I would just encourage people that you can't be oversaturated. You can't be
Yes.
oversaturated in people committed to walking with other people through their story. That's,
Well, and I totally agree. And this is what Christy and I were talking about, is that there's 7 billion people out there that need Jesus
yeah,
Christ,
yeah.
and that could really benefit from the Enneagram
Mhm.
from a unique perspective. And like, I totally agree. God is going to bring to you people that need your viewpoint, your skill set, your life experience.
Yeah.
And if he wanted them to be with me, he would bring them to me. And so there really isn't a scarcity. God will bring us. We just have to faithfully walk in the
Yeah.
calling he has called us to. And then when we do, we're going to experience a lot of excitement. Now, there's ups and downs. This isn't easy. This is work.
Yeah.
But to watch people transform right before our eyes and seeing what God is doing by accessing how we have been created, it is just exhilarating. And that's what I kind of hear you saying. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's all I wanted.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Yeah. So for those that are interested in BEC, you have a unique calling. God has created you to bless others. So dive in, try it out, and see how God will bless you and bless others through you. All right. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.